Hello, 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 everybody. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day. What I want to talk about in this video is Chris Cyborg. What for her now? Where does she go? Chris Cyborg is one of the most dominant, vicious, talented, aggressive, outstanding female fighters of all time. She very well may be the GOAT of female fighters. It's hard to say because her level of competition wasn't always the greatest, because she was fighting in a weight class that was high above, which she's been criticized of, and I would criticize her for that as well. I feel like Chris Cyborg could have lost 10 pounds of muscle and competed at some lower weight classes, and I think she would have been vicious and dominant there too, but the way that she beat down all the girls that the UFC threw to her, except Nunez, the way that she did Gina Carano, and she has just a lot. Invicta was like, it was a brutal rampage. Everybody she went through there was just, those fights were hard to watch, the way that she was just beating those women down. But that said, the woman went undefeated for, 13 years without a loss? She lost her first mixed martial arts fight, and then after that, she didn't have a loss for 13 years. How many defenses of how many different featherweight titles did she have? She had, I think, she had Lead XC. She had, I don't know, did she fight? I believe that, I can't remember if she fought in Strike Force or not. She had Invicta, the UFC, and she's kind of like the, what's his name? The Underground King. She's kind of like the Underground King in a lot of ways of females. She's fought in all these different organizations and won all those titles. She took that L to Amanda Nunez. She just met her match with speed, somebody that could hit as hard as she could, and that would stay in the pocket. And Nunez she connected first, and she connected hard and clean. And once she has you hurt, you're in trouble. That girl can bang, and she can throw hands. And I think a rematch between her and Nunez doesn't go the exact same way. I think that Chris wouldn't fight as reckless now that she knows. She look out for the speed, and she might even clinch up with her some more, because they're both BJJ black belts. And I believe that Cyborg has the strength advantage in those clinches, but we didn't really get a chance to see any of that. The fight became a firefight of just brawling, swinging hands, and it was over. And it was an amazing victory for Amanda Nunez. That said, we just seen Cyborg fight Felicia Spencer the other night. It was a good performance. She didn't put her away. She hit Spencer with some of the same bombs she's hit everybody else with, but Felicia Spencer just survived it. Spencer also cut her. A lot of clout goes out to Felicia Spencer for the performance she put out there versus a very dominant Chris Cyborg. And, Chris Cyborg is getting up there in years. She's, I think, 35 years old. She's got some miles on her. It's not just the miles in fights, but think about all those miles in the gym. I think that she was at Shoot the Box for a long time, and they go hard. A lot of guys get hurt there in that training camp, and because they go so hard, their sparring is like straight up fighting. So that being said, where does Chris Cyborg go now? Dana White made some comments about Cyborg, and he always has disrespected Chris. He looks down on her. It seems like in almost every interview, he's always saying something derogatory or putting her down. He said she was silver in high heels and a dress, and he talked about her steroid usage a lot. But, it's true. She used steroids, and she got those gains. So I will always look down on Cyborg for that, which might take her out of the GOAT conversation. But the thing about it is that all these athletes are taking PEDs. Just some of them are getting caught. She got caught. John Jones got caught. But who hasn't gotten caught? There's some guys that are smarter than others, and there's some guys that are just not using as much. But they're all using. Almost, if you had millions of dollars involved in it, and between taking a pill and not taking a pill to feed your family and to make hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars, almost anybody under that pressure would take a pill. Even the ones that say, I'm so against steroids, they're still taking steroids. Look at John Fitch. John Fitch was adamant against steroids. That dude got popped. He's popped several times now. The same thing could be said. Hendricks, look at Hendricks and look how he fell off after USADA came. If you think GSP was never on the juice, you got to be crazy. Just look at him, the way that dude striated. Nobody a natural bodybuilding and natural fitness gets that striated. There's ways around those tests now. If you want to know that, watch my USADA video, the USADA Con. But anyway, so Chris, Dana made these comments about her, really trying to beef up Nunez so that if Cyborg leaves, that Nunez is the baddest woman in the world. In fact, he made those very comments about Nunez, saying that she's the baddest woman in the world. And because she beat Chris, he has some clout to that, but he doesn't. It's just marketing. It just comes down to dollars and cents and money. And he don't care about anything. He cares about the Benjamins, and he's doing what he has to do to make his promotion seem the best, and make his fighters seem the best, and to get the biggest draw. And so he's going to put down other fighters, which I don't agree with. But I'm not a promoter. I'm not into shoes. He's done a good job of building the UFC and making it a brand and making MMA a global sport. But sometimes he does some dirty things, but promoters are dirty in general. Fighting has been dirty since the very beginning. It started its life off in being these illegal matches and underground matches, and then most of the fighters hung out in bars and saloons and brothels, and the gamblers and the drug dealers and the mafiosa. I mean, they was involved in all that kind of stuff. So there was fixes from the very beginning. Fighting has always been a dirty sport. It will always be a dirty sport. It's too easy to rig, and there's too much money involved. But anyway, that's where it comes down to Cyborg, as far as I'm concerned, money. She has nothing to prove anymore. She was the most dominant woman for all these years. Her legacy is there. I mean, 13 years, she was a destroyer. Up until Nunez, nobody could touch her. So what would you do if you were in her shoes? I wouldn't care about the letters UFC or Bellator or One. Wouldn't matter. None of that would matter to me at all in her situation. She's only got so many fights left before, she's really out of the age to be a competitive athlete. And especially being a female, I don't know what their age range. I mean, males, different weight classes, they peak at different times. The heavyweights later, the lightweights earlier. But I'm not really too sure. We haven't seen a lot of females compete late into the 30s. Most are in their 20s. By the early 30s, they're done with the sport. Personally, I think this is what Cyborg should do. I think she should go PFL if they'll give her a contract. She's got a chance to win $1 million in that tournament. $1 million. When is she ever going to have the chance in the UFC to make $1 million? I don't even know what her fight pay looks like, but I doubt she's getting paid more than $150,000 if she's getting that. Female champions at the top only make between $150,000 to $220,000. I think Joanna was making the most. I think she was making $220,000 or $240,000. And I don't even know if she was getting a win bonus. That might have been with her win bonus with $220,000 or $240,000. They're not making nothing compared with the men make. So Cyborg with 3 fights could make $1 million. So that's $333,000 a fight. Plus the pay for those fights, whatever they'd be paying her for those, probably being Cyborg be a big contract, maybe 75, 80K on top of that. So looking at $1.3, $1.4 million. That'll set her up for the rest of her life. She could go to Bellator. Bellator has a much more developed 145-pound weight class than does the UFC. The UFC just throws big 135-pound girls up there who easily still make 135 pounds, and we're feeding them like sacrificial lambs. But, there's very few real 145-pounders. I don't know if Cyborg has faced it before Felicia Spencer, a real 145-pound girl in the UFC. There's just not much talent there. They've been taking some talented 135er home. I think Kat Zingano fought there. There's Megan Anderson, but she's trash. She had an opportunity to be a really compelling figure in that weight class and really build it up. She's hot. I think she's fine. But she's she's got an attitude. I've dealt with her on social media several times. She's just real stuck up and thinks way too high of herself, especially being in our country. But she fights like crap. Her ground game hasn't evolved since she got beat by Cindy Dandois. I mean, she hasn't evolved anything in the ground game. So really, she'll have a couple more losses here, and she's on her way out the door. So she'll probably end up in Bellator. And Julia Budd will probably take it to try to beat that ass, to be honest. Julia Budd will probably beat the crap out of her. But what Julia Budd is, that's an opponent that could give Cyborg some trouble. That'd be a real 145-pound opponent. But if I was Cyborg, I wouldn't be caring about names or clout or reputation. I wouldn't care about none of that no more. I would go make those Benjamins, because fighting is get in, get out, because you can't do it forever. She's got to live the rest of her life off of what skills does she have besides fighting. What else can she do to make that kind of living? And I doubt that she can make a living doing much elsewhere. So, Chris, go to PFL, get that money. Screw what Dana White says. Real MMA fans are watching. Those are the ones that probably the only ones that are watching PFL, to be honest. We don't care about what Dana says. We know Dana's full of shit. So don't let it bother you. Keep your head up and keep fighting. Hope everybody has a wonderful day. Take care. God bless. Peace.